The Lodge is a 2019 thriller directed by Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala, an Australian filmmaking duo also known for their 2014 film Goodnight Mommy. This film premiered at Sundance Film Festival in January 2019. I want to begin by talking about the stagnancy of recent horror films, with exceptions of Underwater and The Invisible Man. Movies like The Turning, Fantasy Island, and Brahms the Boy 2 haven't broken the mold or even entertained much in the past year. Also, quick nod to The Hunt. Hit the like button if you laughed at that movie at least once. This film at many times reminded me of Kubrick's The Shining. We see that prominently here in the first scene, slowly floating through what appears to be a house. This painting is the L'Annunciata, the Virgin Annunciata, by Italian Renaissance artist Antonello da Messina, and it depicts Mary interrupted at her reading of the Angel of the Annunciation. I realize it's small nuances, but the fade here again reminds me of The Shining and sort of blends together a full scene by cross-fading multiple shots. Then we cut to a clean, wide-angle locked shot. Maybe now you're seeing it. I love the art direction here with the innocent colors. The white and the blue are nice contrast to the rest of the dreary imagery present in most thrillers. Can't believe Batgirl's only 43. Welcome to this strange-looking house. But here again, we have a nice staging of wide-angle, locked-off shot with a 2/3 placement. Allows the movement of the scene to be set up for how she doesn't come fully up the stairs at first, and then they sort of peek at each other around the wall, indicating the distance between them. These scenes alone evoke more fear than 300 plus minutes of Brahms the Boy. I couldn't help but laugh at the scene where the doll and balloons sort of just fall. I know, cruel. But then, this scene really drove home the screenwriter's ability to accurately portray grief that I haven't seen in a movie in a while. The way the girl is hysterical, but trying to keep it in, and her older brother unsure of what to do. All too close to home. This shot right here reminds me of Clockwork Orange. And this one here, Hereditary nod? Another Shining style sequence, and here we have such an interesting concept to include in a movie. It's tragic, especially because it's based off of the Rio Heaven's Gates in San Diego in 1996, where 39 members committed mass suicide in a communal house with shrouds covering their upper bodies. Just a quick note, they purchased alien abduction insurance on their property. Hey Geico, is this still a thing? This is a great example of building anticipation and anxiety. From the kids' perspective, they had no idea who this woman screwing their dad was, and it haunted them. This ghostly figure has now entered their confined comfort zone, turns around, and wow, she's a normal, attractive girl. Oh hey, this kind of looks like the dollhouse. They intended to model the film after a haunted house movie. To suspect the children's deceased mother, Laura, may in fact be haunting the home. This is a nod to Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca, in which the woman comes to believe her home is haunted by a husband's first deceased wife. This scene begins to intensify Grace's repression and struggle with her past. At first I was assuming this was going to turn into a supernatural thriller, so here, check this out. Nosebleeds can be caused by stress and anxiety. They did a great job of actually making Grace a person. She is reasonable, and you can tell she's putting in a lot of effort to rehabilitate, which makes sense why the dad is a psychiatrist/therapist. Red is often a symbolic color, and here it's kind of double layered. So we have a red hat on the person portrayed to be evil, Grace, not realizing that the mother, Laura, was the one who took her life, and then the daughter said she couldn't go to heaven. Just interesting on the second watch through. Again, I thought it was really refreshing to see this character development. Grace keeps demonstrating a genuine gentleness and putting forth effort, but gets shut down. We finally find out she's taking medication, justifiably so. Any family vacation I've ever gone on, never mind. This scene left me a bit puzzled. After she pops in the DVD and Mom looks at the camera and says, "We did good, we've done good." Grace storms off. I guess after watching again as a stepmom, it can be extremely traumatic to assume the role and responsibility of her position, as well as the confusion felt as to why someone would take their own life when they have two wonderful children. In addition to her losing her dad, I'm sure it was traumatic. This shot is incredible for some reason. I think it's the subtlety of eeriness and not blatant or jumpy. It leads into such an atmospheric sequence, and I think this whole film manages to do that so well. She blows out the candles next to the doll representing the dead mother, and what pursues is our first glimpse of terror. While shooting the interiors, Bakatakis, Franz, and Fiala deliberately chose to not frame shots at eye level, instead opting for angles positioned from above or below the actors. When you realize later on that she's in fact sleepwalking and reliving her tragic events as a child again and again, you start to understand the movie more. This is where things begin to get eerie. What's great about this is the truth is right in front of our faces, but as the audience, we are being lied to as well. We feel the confusion and distrust that she feels, but it's so absurd, so we can't really prove it.
So let me have your phone.
It's incredible that this film was shot in chronological order. It makes sense as Grace becomes more unhinged. I can imagine how intense this must have been, but Riley Keough did an amazing job with this. The faint whispers with an intense weight carried behind them, that's an impeccable skill. Grace's anxiety at this point begins to ramp incessantly. Without her meds, she has to be experiencing intense panic attacks. Assuming she's taking benzodiazepines or something like Seroquel, withdrawals could begin as soon as a day, depending on her dose. So imagine your mind caving in, mixed with having to care for 2 children that you don't really know, alone, in the freezing cold, and having nightmares of your dead dad as you sleepwalk. You'd begin to unhinge as well. This was a fantastically executed scene. Again, sort of reminded me of Eternal Sunshine, running through the beach house. Her flashlight waning over the hallways of her friends and dad, dying and taunting her. Literally striking like a nightmare. The way these 2 scenes are choreographed inspires nightmares. If you know anyone that sleepwalks, they could probably tell you that this isn't that far-fetched. It's becoming more clear that this isn't some paranormal movie. This is pure gold. In my opinion, this is the perfect example of well-executed CGI. No, there probably wasn't a building conspicuously shaped like a cross in the middle of a field in Canada, and her dad in the window beckoning salvation just creates a mirage of composition. So now there's an actual reawakening of a cult, or someone's f***ing with them. Now I think we know who it is. This is crazy. They played this out so well that you may still be questioning whether this is actually happening or they are dead. It borders surreal just enough that it's not 100% evident yet, and it's perfect. This poor girl is taking all her traumatic years of rejecting spiritual salvation. She's at her wit's end, and she tries to pray, only for it.
God is waiting.
The last 10 minutes or so of this movie was one of the most thrilling endings I've seen in a while. The amount of tension built purely from character development, when we become conflicted on the protagonist and the antagonist and begin to question empathy and sympathy, an emotional connection begins to develop to a film or an art. This whole film we were led to believe a supernatural entity was possessing Grace, or that she had attracted some sort of a cult that was terrorizing her family, her new family. When we realized that children were just messing with a highly unstable girl who suffered extensive trauma her whole life and was working as hard as she could to rebuild her life and psyche, we're left questioning what to even say. Was the true evil spirit the children who converted their pain from their mother's suicide into pure disregard? They watched her unhinge and had zero remorse or awareness for the severity. They put themselves at risk to make this woman suffer. Some will say kids will be kids, but movies that draw light to real-life ghosts and demons are extremely multidimensional. As evil as those kids may seem, they had demons of their own. I think we all have a space in our lives where there may be something we're doing to someone else, knowingly or unknowingly, and it may be harming them. And I think we all have had something or someone harm us or affect us in a way that caused that behavior. Does it make it okay? No. Does it make sense that we can't always understand who we are? Yes. And that's why sometimes We too live in the lodge.